Yeah.
So Arpit, welcome to the podcast. As probably we know each other for pretty long time, and what I wanted to do in the podcast is discuss with you about what happens when you do from engineering to MBA and other transition. So let's please give your small introduction, then we can proceed.
Sure, absolutely. Just starting from the start, as you said, my name is Arpit. I was born, brought up in Bareilly, UP. I think the first time I ventured out was to join NIT Jamshedpur, and as you said, this is where you and I met. And I think after 4 years of bucker and relatively no study, I ended up joining Accenture in Mumbai. And now this is where 5 years I was obviously working in the product development in Accenture. Another, I would say, 5 years of here and there. I think that's when I decided I need like a slight direction in my career, a change in career as well. So I decided to join ISB Hyderabad. Did my major in strategy and leadership there. And this is where I would say I had a little inclination towards consulting industry. And after completing my MBA, I moved on to joining Cognizant Consulting and Deloitte Consulting. And over the next 5 years, obviously, I got to work in all parts of the world. Worked in India, Malaysia, moved on to US for a couple of years, and after that, I moved to Australia, and I've been here in Sydney for close to 3 years now, and happily settled in the insurance industry now, and I'm working as a business transformation portfolio manager for an insurance company here.
So what is exactly portfolio manager? Like what roles you have?
Okay, so it's how like I am obviously part of the general insurance industry. So for the organization, obviously we have like a short term and a long term strategy in place, and we have a defined pool of money allocated to execute that strategy. So what we have to do is every year we have to identify what sort of projects we should be doing. Like right from our operational efficiency, growing our sales, to regulatory projects and so on. So we have kind of a pool of money, and then what I have to do, I have to manage that, what kind of projects we should do, and like obviously prepare the business case, take it to the executives, and once they approve a particular project, then I have to do the governance and then the benefit realization as well for that.
Okay, so great. So let's get into uh, how the life is different from post engineering jobs and foreign post MBA jobs.
Okay.
You said you spent a pretty good amount of time working as a software engineer in product development with Accenture. Uh, so how different you find both the jobs?
Yeah. So, and I would say it is very similar to how engineering and MBA is. So if you like, obviously, like you would know that engineering is more technical, it's more knowledge based. However, if you look at MBA is more analytical. It's more about scenario based case studies and so on. And I found even the jobs are like that. Like obviously, my job at Accenture, it was more about my technical skills as a developer, right? I had to understand more about the technology, more about the product that I was working with at Accenture, and it required like slightly longer hours and then going deep into the code and then talking about the technical details of it. While if you see like my work in consulting industry, it was obviously each engagement was different. It was more about a scenario or a situation with a particular organization and how do we fix it. So right from like looking at the customer experience transformation of a particular company, or sometimes it is just that like one of my assignments was that like an insurance company, a US based insurance company, had just completed a joint venture engagement with a local bank in Malaysia, and like the operating model obviously wasn't in sync. So what I had to do, just go and look at their like the difference in style of working from an operating model perspective and set the right model and processes in place. So it also, as I said, like I found post MBA jobs or like MBA for that reason is more scenario based, is more about how do you approach a particular problem. And that's why like people talk about frameworks and methodologies when they talk about
Yeah.
MBAs and so on. It is because you don't have an expertise in a particular kind of a thing. You have an approach in place, and whatever the scenario is, you kind of try to fix that approach or find a solution for that approach based on the framework.
Okay, so from like post engineering, it's more of a code based. You become expert in the domain and the kind of technical ability, and then you transition into a generalist role post MBAs. Is it fair to say that? Or
Uh, if I see if I go back to like the job at Accenture, and since I moved out after 5 years, so obviously I didn't experience KR. After gaining that technical expertise, what's the next step? Because I moved on before I reached the next step. But if I look back at how my team is doing, how my colleagues are doing now, like again, even in like software industry, if you say post engineering work, there obviously were multiple lines. Like after like 4 to 5 years of working as a developer or as a tester or whichever obviously function or domain you are in, after that you have a like I think, and I've seen people taking a choice that either they go deep into the technical route and become more like an architect or like a technical consultant, or they kind of move into team management and they become a team lead and project
team
managers and so on.
leads?
And if you go beyond like team leads or project managers, even a lot of MBA, and we can talk about that even after MBA you can move back into that role. Like that's where MBA is different. Like if you move back into your industry and IT industry in that perspective, you kind of do the same. Like it's more selling, right? Like after you become project manager, what you're doing, you are selling either the solution, you're selling a product, or you are selling a service, right? So it's very similar after that. It's a choice that you make.
Yeah, when you're talking about selling, this came to my mind. Like when we were doing engineering, we were especially kind of, if you make it to good engineering college, you have been mostly a bookworm. Like you have to study certain hours, then only you can
Exactly.
crack those exams. So we are more prone to doing get into books, get into coding. It's very focused, and we are kind of happy with that world. But how important it is to sell yourself? Like after a certain point of time, you realize it's more important to sell yourself rather than have possessing all those kind of technical skills. It's become very important. What do you think?
Yeah, I feel technical skills are actually like, and if you continue in a technical line, be it IT or be it in like manufacturing or production or whatever line you pick, like finance in that matter as well. So technical skills, if we are talking about like in IT, we are talking about understanding of a programming language, or if you're a tester, understanding of the testing methodologies and so on. So these testing skills are important to sell yourself, right? Because like you can only sell yourself if you have something worthy of like selling,
Yeah,
right? so
that's true.
so
You have to
so
have a
yeah,
product.
exactly. So selling yourself, and why it is said that selling yourself is important, like if you, as you grow higher up, it is so it is all about your customers, like either your internal customers, like if you are within an organization, you are supporting to the sales team, so your internal customer is your sales team, or if you are customer facing, then obviously you are directly selling it to the customer. So
Like,
when they say go
yeah,
ahead,
yeah.
go ahead.
Continue.
No, I was just saying. So when you know that you should know selling, it is because they want to see once you reach up there, are you like, will you be able to sell or not?
Yeah, so in this point, like when I first joined Satyam, so there was one
Mhm.
session. We all went through that 3 months of induction training program,
Correct,
right? So
correct.
one of the senior managers came into the class, the session, and he told like there is hardly anything to difference between the people who are all sitting in this room. But
Hmm.
if you look back, say 5 years, 10 years down the line, the people who would be succeeding would be who can talk also, rather than just having that coding skill. He gave a
Exactly.
pretty good example saying that he was from Hyderabad itself, and but he studied in, I guess he studied in bits planning, and he came into a lot of contact. He worked in with a lot of North Indian and other things. I'm not really sure how true it is, but he said was like, you see a South Indian guy, he would be spending more time in office. He'll do more coding than a North Indian guy with the same capabilities. A North Indian guy will go and do some party and all this stuff. But when you have to present what you have done, the South Indian might have done the coding. Obviously, the North Indian guy would also do the coding, but he'll push a North Indian to go and, okay, Macha, you take the lead and speak up, do the presentation, and he'll see that he might become your boss. I'm not really sure how true it was in terms of North Indian and South Indian, but actually what he said was very true. Like people who can talk better, have a better chance to move up, right? It's like having a better communication skills.
I, to be very frank, I have not seen that a lot. Like and obviously, like someone who can present better, obviously, is kind of I don't know, perceived as a like someone obviously with better intelligence. But yeah, I feel that after a certain point doesn't work like that, because
Okay.
like once you reach middle management, and like once you go beyond just a team lead, and you are like a manager, or obviously a senior manager, which is like up to a director, which is a middle management, it is almost everyone, either by the virtue of being good at presentation, or good with communication skills, or by the virtue of having that 12-15 years of experience and have like done it 500 times, they become average to like like good, I would say, right? In doing that,
Okay.
so वो is not a differentiating factor anymore. ठीक है, almost सभी के like almost everyone can present like in front of
Yeah.
10 people in a boardroom, right? So soft skill obviously is like good to have, but it stops becoming a differentiating factor after some time.
Good. So, Achha,
Yeah,
what
I mean,
we see a lot of
I intentionally like tried not to comment on the North Indian, South Indian thing. You know how I'm married to
yeah,
one, so obviously I can't talk about it.
yeah, of course. So you see, when we started in our college, it was mostly people who were engineering student, and still majority of the guys who do MBAs are engineering student. But there has been a lot of push from, like, in terms of how MBA selection was when we were in college, and what
Mm-hmm.
now. Like, a lot of weightage has been given to, you say, your marks, your background, from where you are coming. So do you think, be having coming from an engineering background, and especially in times now, times like this where everything is tech driven, an engineer would have a different, more, what do you call, tech driven perspective to, after doing an MBA, and better chance to understand technology, how technology can drive a business, from, say, somebody who is not coming from a engineering, non engineering background. So what do you think, like, how does engineering background play a role? Because right now we see engineers doing, making movies, doing everything after doing engineering. So what do you think, how does it help in post MBA?
Yeah, that my experience has been that, for at least for me, engineering was less of a knowledge, or I was a mechanical engineer. Clear. If you see, clear alignment of what I've been doing. So
And that too from NIT Jamshedpur. So we,
exactly. So, but I feel that engineering is less of a knowledge, like obviously, or maybe the way we did it, or I did it at least, is was less of gaining that knowledge, more of a gaining an approach towards life, or approach towards doing things. Okay, so because like 4 years mechanical engineering, learned nothing about software, right? But when I moved there, it was the approach that I learned. Kia, there's exam day afterwards, or even tomorrow, and I'm just studying something and kind of like going ahead with that. So that kind of an approach, that just focus on what you need to learn, just learn that and kind of go ahead with that. That was my experience, yeah, in gaining the technical knowledge. But when I thought of doing an MBA, it was more about what I wanted to do, right, post MBA. Like so, and because I was doing, after gaining a lot of experience, like after 5 years, I was doing that. So I had a decent experience in my kitty, and I didn't want to go back to my industry. So what you can do is either you go back to your industry and like jump a couple of
yeah.
positions, and you join at a senior level, or you can pick a completely different route and obviously go there. So if, and your approach will work, first of all, if you are going back to your industry, taking a jump up, obviously your engineering mindset, your technical mindset will help a lot, because you are either managing people like yourself with a technical engineering mindset, so you will have that empathy of what they are thinking, so it will be easier to manage. Or if you're selling, then it will be easier to sell, because you understand like what it was, so it's easier to sell. But
Okay.
if
So
you go ahead.
so two questions. Like, you
Hmm.
said that we hardly studied in our engineering, right? That's true for
I
most
at
of
least
us.
I yeah.
Not you. It's like, except for 4 or 5 guys in our batch. Like, we can name
Exactly.
people on, count them
Yeah,
on our fingers.
I don't want to name Pandit, but
Yeah.
please go ahead.
So let's keep them aside. But do you think MBA sort of become a escape route for us, because we are not confident, our the kind of like what even we are not confident about our engineering studies, how things are. It's maybe not our fault. The entire system works like that, and that then MBA becomes sort of okay. Yeah, if I have to do something as per my expectation, let's do an MBA. That will kind of help me sail through the shortcomings that I have gained in my MBA. Sorry, engineering. So, is it one option? What you take? Like a lot of people, friends that we know, they don't want to do MBA just because to, okay, dude, I have screwed up my engineering. Let's do an MBA and make something out of ourselves.
Yeah, that is one way. It is, and
For
like,
you, like you took 5 years and then did an MBA. So probably then you have more maturity to think of it. You know the industry, how things work, rather than somebody who is just doing it after fresher. He have no clue what is an MBA. He don't know how industry works. So he's just jumping straight. Either he knows, like we had a junior in from Calcutta. So that guy knew from the first day of engineering that he wants to do an MBA. So he was sure, but most of them will not like that. People were okay, engineering one, let's do an MBA.
Let's do an MBA, correct. And for like, and then as you said, yeah, for multiple reasons. Ek to, for some of them, it is, and it is true that people generally remember your last degree, right? So if you have, as you said, like if you have not been to the topmost colleges in for engineering, and if you want like obviously a brand or a prestige associated with that brand, people would want to go ahead and do an MBA. That because once you have done an MBA, let's say if you have done an MBA from IIMs or ISB, after that nobody's going to ask you like, okay, where did you do your graduation or undergraduation, right? So that could be one reason. Other reason could be that and this is the most common reason that I have seen, like, and I kind of did that, a lot of people did it, was to change your work stream, that you're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like after 4 years of being in the software industry, for the only route for me, I'm not saying it's an escape route, but the only way for me was to do an MBA and then kind of look at other opportunities, right? So this has been the most common route. However, when I joined my MBA program, and I was obviously talking to a lot of people, eventually a lot of them kind of went back to an industry aligned with what they were doing before, right? So I would say everyone does it for different reason. It is possible, not an escape route, but it is possible.
Obviously it gives you a lot of different outlook towards career. You kind of people that you meet in an MBA is completely different from what you do in engineering. Okay, so coming back to that question, say suppose Arpit Gupta, now if he has to meet somebody, and Arpit Gupta who is about to join an engineering college, what advice he will give to that guy? What to do, not to do in college? Would it be different from what the way you spend your 4 years, or you will advise him to do something different? And say suppose if you first tell me what advice you will.
To be frank, I don't regret a lot, like from how we were, like we were from the pre-internet era, right? So our 4 years
was completely different.
Exactly, we had like a very different experience, right? So I don't think it was all good, right? Because to be very frank, I don't remember the grades, like the good or the bad grades. Never had good grades, but like I still don't remember the 1 or 2 I got. Right?
You're talking to a guy who was struggled to get into 7 GPAs.
No, but we were all there. Like we were almost there, right? So it's just that I since it was less about like grades for me, at least. I think by the end of third year, if my version back in 2006-7, if he's clear on what he wants to do, I would say just continue with what I did. I think I'm pretty happy with what I did where I am.
You will not have any regrets. But if I have to go back and say somebody else said do some studies and continue.
but do you think that like if you see and I give that example to a lot of people.
I give you my biggest regret is that I studied electronics engineering. I should have done anything. It's like when my brother joined in, who was looking for an engineering seat, I told him, feel electronics at the bottom, like do electrical, computer science, mechanical, but don't do electronics in India. It's like,
Seriously?
yeah, I told him not to feel electronics engineering because what you do, yeah, after electronics, especially in India, unless you are going to abroad and doing in MS, for that also you probably need a decent amount of faculty to help you out. If you're probably if you're not into top IITs, you know, and I know what the faculty standard was at NIT Jamshedpur, or more or
Exactly.
less it's the same almost all places. So this is what I told him, and probably he's doing much better than me into computer science. And Acha, coming to that question, do you think it helps getting into a software job, like in long term or short term, having a computer science background or coming from a non-computer science background? For us, I have seen a lot of people struggle. Like if you're not computer science background, especially initially, you don't get kind of the roles which will help you. If you get into certain roles where you don't gain much technical coding skills, you probably struggle afterwards if you choose to remain into this uh, software engineering job. So
Yeah. Uh,
what do you think?
yeah, like I don't think I had that experience. Like obviously, I was from a non-computer science branch, and then when I joined, and I don't know how the scenario is nowadays, but like in our time, it was never that based on you. At least in Accenture, it was not just based on your grades. Obviously, like during your greenfield training, they would just they would divide you in batches for things. Like it's not that if you
Yeah,
know SAP, then you will be a part of
of
the
course,
SAP
nobody
team.
knows it.
Exactly, or something like that. So it wasn't like that. So I don't think कि वैसा कुछ हुआ. Like I didn't face that, and however I have I don't know because like if like
I have
there were
seen right now people like say what I think is there is hardly much difference in terms of skills of people, especially when you're joining an engineering college. We don't choose our branches based on what we want. We choose what
exactly
rank we have. So it does.
exactly
There is
exactly.
hardly anything to difference between a computer science guy or say electronics or mechanical or this thing. But in terms of job, I don't know in the middle. Probably now with a lot of internet access, anybody can
Hmm.
get that kind of skills. It's 400
Correct.
rupees on Udemy and you can learn a Python or something like that. It was not that for our time. So I saw a lot of things happening. Like for a computer science guy, will get a better development project than a non-computer science guy. He'd be put into certain projects where probably other skills would be more important than having a coding skill. That was earlier. But
Okay.
at this moment, I don't think coding skills and those things really matter because it does not matter, man. You can join a Udemy or Coursera and you can learn that at a very
Exactly.
cheap price. And
Exactly.
so
Take
that's
again if and you look at from a company's perspective, if they just wanted people who have learned like computer science for 4 years, why would they open recruitment for non-computer science branches, right?
yeah. So
Because the idea is they want people they want people with like how our recruitment process was more
yeah.
about aptitude, right? It was less about.
Yeah, for our time it was we were still in that zone where companies to come to college and sweep up everyone. Like if a TCS would come to a college, it will hire 200 people if you have enough strength, or TCS
Exactly.
can hire the entire college if they wanted. But I think
Correct.
things have changed more, become niche right now. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's true.
probably this is pretty difficult time we are in. We have seen 2008 recession at the very beginning of our career. Probably it was a pretty shock, right, for us getting few offers and then offers were not getting converted. And similar situation right now.
Correct.
People passing out of college probably. I've seen a lot of posts on LinkedIn. People saying, "Okay, we had the offer, but now the company is saying." So how should one handle this? Because you've seen 2008, now you are in a decent position at in 2020. So what? How do you think these two are different?
Yeah, for me personally, I am over it now because
Okay,
because see, back in 2008, I had no liabilities, right?
nothing to lose.
Exactly nothing to lose, right? So luckily, like I think when we joined, I think Accenture processed the first batch, I think pretty fast. So we joined. Obviously, we had. We had issues with obviously getting a promotion in the first year itself, and a lot of things because of 2008 recession.
A lot of
However,
thoughts went out of the company's purse when we
exactly,
joined.
exactly. But I think it was fine. Like we were pretty young. We had,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think we were. I was fine at least. Like I was like, okay, if I lose it, okay, like there's
In a
nothing I
way,
can
we
do.
were lucky. I remember Satyam at that point of time had huge. Obviously, Satyam was a big brand. Now take Mahindra.
Correct.
They used to recruit a lot of people, but in terms of joining at that year, they only gave joining to NIT, BITS Pilani, and the top state colleges like
Okay.
suppose Jadavpur, Shivpur from Bengal, this kind of colleges.
Correct.
No one
Correct.
got joining. I'm
Hmm.
not sure. And then that time we used to have that Orkut page, Satyam join us, July. And some of our friends used to comment on that. So
Correct.
we are pretty old now, but that's so
Yeah.
we kind of got lucky that we were okay. That was the one time NIT tag helped us.
Correct.
How somebody will like what is the difference you see? Because 2008 was more of a financial crisis. This came, it was more, you can say, a people made, but this is like a natural disaster.
Correct.
And I think it might be something, it might play differently. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I feel it. I believe it is different for multiple reasons. One is like 2008 was a recession, like obviously because of that housing thing and what happened with the financial industry in US. While right now, I think at least at this point, obviously I can't comment कि next year क्या position रहेगा. But at this point of time, I don't think it is as big a recession as 2008
Yes,
was. Like
sure.
it can happen obviously in a year's time, but not at this point. uh, but coming back to apna wo ki people like obviously students who are passing out and they've obviously they have gotten an offer but they are not sure, and like a friend of mine has written a very good article on I think LinkedIn and FB. And he has obviously he's from IIT, and then he has said the same thing that he obviously passed out back in I think 2007 8, and he got a job, and then he got an offer, and then obviously the offer didn't go through because of recession, and then obviously he had to like find a normal like a job outside of the campus, and then obviously he worked there. Like in summary, your career is like a 40 years long career, right? A couple of years won't make a difference where you end up after 40 years, right? So it's just about having patience and like just kind of holding on to your thing कि यार ठीक है अभी मतलब if not now it's not that कि economy is going to close forever, right?
Obviously.
It will be about like a year or so, and good thing is कि most of the economies have seen ठीक है 2008 में क्या हुआ,
Yeah.
so they have been through all of that, so they are very they're very cautious for this time. Like I've seen like at this point I'm seeing more salary reductions than firing. Like they
Fine.
know
True.
that yeah, right, 2008 was more about firing. Yo, 30% cost
Sapuni.
reduction, let's fire 30% of the people, while right now it is more about 30% salary cut across the board to save that 30% money. So it is they've seen कि कैसा होता है, what impact, what kind of human resource पे क्या impact होता है. They need to keep the human capital intact with their company. So I hope that it is not as big, and all like everyone should be
One
just
Yeah, one difference that I'm seeing is 2008 when government were thinking of what to do, like in terms of stimulus. We all have read that okay, why you are bailing out these banks and blah blah things were written. Why these bankers are getting away with creating a recession and there was opposition to the stimulus packages being provided to these companies. But right now, I don't think anybody would go after a government for providing a stimulus package. And probably this is the big difference. Like governments are more proactive at this point of time than what it was 2008. And you
yeah,
saying that
correct.
memory bank, yesterday, I guess, on your story, Book My Show CEOs has an interview.
Mm-hmm.
So Sardar Sharma, the CEO of the your stories, he was asking about how he is going to handle. He said the same thing that I have seen the 90s .com bubble that was worst, then 2008, and then now. So we kind of prepared okay to how to handle this issue,
Correct.
and in a way that is a blessing in disguise for all of us.
Correct. No, absolutely. And yeah, and because of that .com bubble, like, and I'm obviously I'll quote my friend, like he's obviously a financial expert, and he said because of the dot com bubble, a lot of people, a lot of investors who had seen the dot com bubble burst, for almost a decade, they kind of, that's why they priced the all the tech companies, like all the tech companies were undervalued because of the tech bubble for a very long time. And with now obviously, so that's why we see like Microsoft and all their like share price have like tripled and all their value.
Yeah, especially
It's yeah, it's because they were not because just that, but they were undervalued before
obviously the
as well.
kind of job.
Yeah,
Okay. So Arpit, one question, like then we end this. We kind of raised into middle management, and we are sitting in the middle of the sort of hierarchy. We have a team who works under us, and then we report to higher management, sort of called leadership. How do you handle such kind of pressures, like when the leadership is very aggressive, and also being a team lead, when you're working closer to the team, you get a target to achieve. Okay, first, even if in IT you have to, okay, this task I need to be done in, say, in 2 days, when you know actually it might take 5 days.
correct.
So then you have to take that pressure and then you need to convey to your team. Sometimes if you are somebody who of the view that, okay, there should be a balance into what how we do the work, especially in India, right? You've worked here, so some of the managers are crazy, like they don't think people have life outside the offices. I'm not sure
Correct.
how it's in other
Correct.
countries where I've not worked. So how do you handle that kind of situation? Like, I'll tell you one example. For me, it has happened. Like, the team was already slogging for plus 2 months, and then something went really bad, and we were working out something. So people were planning to work late in the night, and when you work late, there are certain perks being provided to the companies. So everyone agrees in the team, okay, we'll work, okay, because people need some incentive to continue working. And at the same time, when it was up, the perks were about to deliver, somebody came in, okay, and you guys have not achieved it, so I'm not going to provide you the anything. And
Yeah.
it pissed me. And when I stood up for the team, I had a few other senior member of the team. It really got, you know how things work. So
Hmm.
it got affected. So how do you handle that kind of pressure with where you have to manage between the leadership and the team?
Hmm. Yeah, Dick, luckily here, and obviously in US as well, work-life balance is very important aspect
Yeah.
from a human resource perspective. To here, I've not seen like a lot of such pressure of like longer working hours and all is not a thing here. However, like obviously the time, like the duration, the 8 hours that you work, they are obviously very intensive. Like you're not,
Yeah.
yeah, you're not goofing around. Uh, I feel and this so right now I'm not leading a team. I'm more of an individual contributor right now, but obviously previously I had a team, and I believe so that the man like the middle managers should be a bit of a cushion, that you should not just pass on the entire pressure that you're getting from leadership onto your teams. That's part of your job to kind of
How do you do that without offending the seniors,
right.
not screwing up the juniors? What is the
Correct.
mindset one should have?
Yeah. So that's a very uh, interesting. So it like what I used to do is like just basically just have that clear communication that whatever expectations you are setting with your team, and that happens like you get 7 days to deliver something, you kind of keep the deadline to 6 days so that you
Yeah.
have one day of extra
One day
buffer,
of
and it goes back, and eventually the person who is doing it has to do it in 2 days because everyone has kept a buffer, and then that happens.
yeah.
I can't say there's an alternative for that, like that happens. But it's more about having a clear communication, like both with your senior, like like whatever you are committing up there, just ensure that your team is aware of it, just because it will like you will look good if you commit like 1 day less or 20% less, and whatever your team has said, that will help you. So that's what I used to have, like very clear communication. If to my manager, if I've said like 6 days, I'll talk to my team and said, is 6 day like feasible? They say yes, and let's do it. And yeah, that's mostly it.
That's how it is. You have to
That's how
live
it
with.
is. Yeah.
Well, Arpit, thanks for the talk, man. We'll
Okay,
have
thank
another.
you.
We'll have more episode with you. And you want to
Done,
say
done.
anything?
No, yeah, I think I said a lot.
Yeah. So we'll
I
ask
think
people to
you
subscribe to the channel on YouTube. I'll be putting it, and probably
absolutely.
we'll have more discussion on things, how economy is changing and other stuff. You want to
Yeah,
say
yeah.
as an ending few lines? What do you want to say?
No, I'll just say thanks. Yeah, thank you for this call. It was like good talking to you again. We actually connected last month, so it was good talking to you. And like just let's hope everyone is safe and staying safe. That's it. That's
Okay,
it.
so just one question. It's
Uh-huh.
like a different question, not in terms of technical. If you today somebody invites you to go and give a speech on it to an NIT Jamshedpur student, what would you say? Because
First,
I've asked
first I'll
Ankit
ask the
also.
person, are you crazy? Why are you asking me to go and talk to
No,
any
if
student?
those professors are sitting in front of us, are
Yeah.
we going to say all the good things or the things we actually how we saw it?
Yeah, no. I think,
We
yeah,
need to be diplomatic, right?
yeah. You have to be politically correct. But I think it's okay. It's more about it's like, to be very frank, they will have a very different experience in the
Then what we
college
have,
than we had,
obviously.
right? So I don't think we need to talk about our experience in the college. What if I go back, uh, or whoever goes back? I think we can talk more about what we see outside, like
What
what lies outside the college once you have like completed your degree. And I think so. I'll like talk about that more than obviously it.
hopefully
Yeah.
someone from our batch or that point of time writes a book what we have seen in there.
It'll be censored. It'll be censored
Yeah.
big time.
Thank you, man. I'll